In the middle of the wedding, a man burst from the crowd holding a baby and shouted at my bride, "Our baby is hungry. Can you postpone your wedding for a moment?" Hearing him, I looked toward the sound. I saw a man in the audience holding a baby, eyes pleading, staring fixedly at Andrea on the stage. In an instant, the guests erupted into chaos, and I stood there as if struck by lightning. I froze, unable to believe what I was seeing. "No, it's not possible," I managed to say with difficulty, reaching my trembling hand toward Andrea. "Andrea, this must be a misunderstanding." But before I could finish, Andrea rushed down from the stage and took the child from the man's arms with a very gentle movement, as if this were a regular habit for her. In that moment, my head just started buzzing, like something had exploded. I vaguely remembered that every time I saw Andrea lately, she always had a faint scent of milk. Back then, I thought it was because she had changed her perfume. But I never imagined it was because she'd had a child with someone else. "Andrea." I still held on to the hope that maybe she'd give me an explanation, but when Andrea turned toward me, her face showed only coldness and impatience. "Gavin, I only agreed to marry you out of responsibility." As soon as Isaac appeared, I wanted to rush forward and interrogate her, to ask her why she betrayed me, why she waited until now, making me a laughingstock. But before I could move, Andrea's parents, my former in-laws, stepped in. They stepped in like two walls. Dad, Mom, Andrea, full of resentment. I barely started to speak before I was coldly interrupted. "Gavin, Andrea doesn't want to marry you. Stop calling us Mom and Dad. Let's avoid misunderstandings." The words stuck in my throat, and the resentful expression on my face froze instantly. I looked at these two elders, who used to be so close to me, in total disbelief. "So you knew all along? You knew Andrea was cheating and had a child?" "Cheating? What a nasty way to put it," her mother said, looking at me with disgust. "Is it only men who are allowed to make mistakes, and not women? Besides, you two were only dating. If things don't fit, switching partners is normal. There's no reason to make such a scene. Don't act so victimized. My daughter Andrea's company is about to go public, while you're just a poor boy. Think about it. Are you even worthy of her?" Andrea's mother continued, her eyes filled with nothing but disdain. "If you had any self-awareness, you wouldn't have let things get this far. If you had left earlier, none of this would be happening today. It's your fault, like a toad lusting after a swan. You've wasted everyone's time. Now, let's be clear. The cost of the banquet, the travel expenses, you have to cover it all." In that moment, I felt all my blood rush to my head. My pulse pounded, and my fists clenched involuntarily at my sides. I finally understood the reason for Andrea's betrayal, and her parents' attitude too. She thinks I'm not worthy of her now that she's at the top. They look down on me, but they don't know the truth. Does Andrea really not understand who I am either? Who does she think is actually responsible for her company's success today? Without me, her company wouldn't have been established, let alone go public. It wouldn't even exist. I poured my entire heart and soul into this wedding. I hired buses to bring all of Andrea's relatives here because I wanted them to be witnesses to her happiness, but now this has happened. Instead of helping me, these people joined Andrea's parents to mock me, pointing their fingers. What's going on? "Gavin, if you're a man, stop bothering my daughter Andrea. Being this persistent will only make her hate you more. We only recognize Leo as our son-in-law. Give up hope." I gave them all a cold look. So they all knew Andrea had betrayed me. I was the only fool being deceived. I was being manipulated by these people. My friend couldn't take it and tried to argue, but I stopped him. Reasoning with people who consider poverty a sin is a waste of time. I didn't want to see those ugly faces anymore, so I turned to leave. Just then, one of my friends called out to me. He looked rushed, his eyes full of pity. "Gavin, this USB drive. Maybe you should take a look." With a heavy heart, I plugged the USB into the computer. When I opened it, it wasn't the video of my wedding with Andrea, but a record that tore my heart apart. Andrea never liked to cook. She always complained that kitchen smoke damaged her skin and made her age, and she refused to eat dinner with me, despising cheap food for being beneath her taste. However, hidden on this USB were thousands of warm moments of Andrea in the kitchen with another man. They chopped vegetables together and baked. Every image was so sweet, it was blinding. The footage spanned 6 years, exactly how long I had been dating Andrea. I gripped the mouse, with my left hand trembling. I remembered how I had searched everywhere for rare ingredients for her, pushing myself to learn how to cook. What destroyed me was that while I was out networking for the company's sake, drinking until my stomach literally started bleeding, and my body finally collapsed, Andrea had given birth to that man's son. I had loved her for 6 years as if it were a single day. I gave her everything, and in return, I got 6 years of lies and betrayal. Andrea, I gritted my teeth and spat her name out, clutching the wedding ring tightly in my hand. At that moment, it felt like a sword, piercing through me, making it hard to breathe, but then, suppressing the turmoil in my chest, I forced myself to calm down and dialed a number. "Grandpa, the wedding is off. As of today, the Miller family and her family are cutting all ties. I'll be back as soon as possible to take over the company." "Good. I'll do as you say." On the other end of the line, my grandfather's voice sounded joyful, but it was also mixed with a bit of concern. "Gavin, canceling the wedding so suddenly, did something happen?" "It's nothing, Grandpa. I can handle it. I'll see you in a few days." After hanging up, I went straight home. I started packing my bags. Suddenly, some items belonging to a man, items that weren't mine, caught my eye. A cold chill ran from my feet straight to my heart. I didn't need to think twice to know who those things belonged to. I just didn't expect that Andrea had already brought Leo into this house. I couldn't help but remember how Andrea always said she didn't want us living together before the wedding, so she made me stay at a hotel. At the time, I respected her decision. How blind was I? I never saw the real Andrea. But she turned around and brought another man home to spend the night without any hesitation. I had to face the facts. The man Andrea wanted to be with every day wasn't me. She was terrified I'd discover her secret, so she played me for a fool the entire time. I suppressed the rage in my heart. In less than half an hour, I finished packing my things. A small suitcase held everything I owned in this house. Seeing the luggage, the housekeeper, Mary, looked confused and couldn't help but ask, "Sir, today is your wedding day. Where are you going?" In a cold voice, I said, "The wedding is canceled. From now on, we are strangers." Mary's eyes widened in total disbelief. Then, as if she suddenly remembered something, her gaze toward me shifted to pure pity, looking like she wanted to speak but held back. Seeing this, how could I not understand? In my heart, I knew Mary must have known everything about Leo already. I suppose it was obvious. If she brought another man home to stay the night, how could the housekeeper not know? Thinking that almost everyone in the world knew about the relationship between Andrea and Leo, except for me, kept in total ignorance, I suddenly felt like I was living in the Truman Show. I was that Truman, surrounded by layers of lies and deception. With that thought, I didn't want to stay a moment longer. I grabbed my suitcase and turned to leave. Right at that moment, the sound of laughter and joy drifted up from downstairs. Andrea was there, carrying a baby in her arms, making cooing sounds at the infant. She was smiling at the child, looking like a happy mother without a care in the world. Seeing them together confirmed everything for the third time. My heart was officially broken. I watched them together, and the way she held the child close made my blood run cold. It was all a lie. Leo was Andrea's ex-boyfriend, the one who abandoned her and went abroad when her family's business was struggling the most. I never imagined that after all this time, they would end up back together. Andrea looked surprised to see me, her brow furrowing in immediate annoyance. She seemed genuinely bothered by my presence in the house, just as she had been during our wedding ceremony. She had run off with Leo without a single word of explanation, leaving me at the altar. Even now, she clearly had no intention of explaining herself or offering an apology. My heart sank to the very bottom. Even a coworker who stands you up for a meeting would give an excuse, let alone for something as sacred and important as love and marriage. I dated Andrea for 6 whole years. Don't I deserve at least a single explanation from her? "Andrea, how can you ignore me like this, as if I don't matter at all?" As she felt my gaze, Leo took a step forward. With his eyes reddened, he looked me right in the face and spoke. "Mr. Miller, I am so sorry. Because of me, your wedding was interrupted this morning. Andrea left with me and the child. I came back specifically to apologize to you. I hope you don't take it the wrong way." I stared at Leo's fake, innocent expression, and suddenly, the thought of the USB drive exploded in my mind. He was the one. That USB drive must have been swapped by Leo. He was the only one who touched it when he bumped into me. Leo is blatantly humiliating me, flaunting his victory and forcing me away from Andrea forever. Now he acts with this false pity, looking at me as if I'm a desperate, hopeless case. His fake compassion only fills me with immense disgust. I looked at him coldly and said in a neutral tone, "You went to so much trouble, taking the person and then bothering to come back home to apologize." Leo's face turned white as a sheet. He looked at Andrea, not knowing what to do. Andrea reached out and grabbed Leo's hand as if to comfort him, then glared at me. With a dark expression and a heavy voice, she snapped, "Kevin, stop talking in circles. If you're angry, take it out on me. I'm the one who left you at the altar. I betrayed you. Leo has nothing to do with this. He's just a man caring for a child. He's exhausted and in poor health. He can't handle your hurtful comments, so watch your mouth." So, she actually knows how to care for someone. My heart felt like a hole had been ripped open, letting in an infinite, freezing wind. I thought planning our wedding would be a sweet journey together. But in reality, I handled every detail alone. The decor, the program, the staff. On the wedding day, I dragged my sick, feverish body around just so her relatives wouldn't have to wait. She didn't give a damn if I lived or died, or how humiliating it was to be abandoned. I should have seen it coming, but the words escaped me. "Andrea, aren't you even going to ask how I handled the disaster?" Andrea replied with total indifference, her tone even more nonchalant than before. "You're not some rookie fresh out of school, or an inexperienced kid, or a spoiled child like Leo. You've been in the professional world for years. I trust you can handle these little things." That look in her eyes wasn't trust. She was clearly treating me like an old rag you throw in the trash. Leo then chimed in, "Andrea, don't be so angry. Be kinder to him." He couldn't even hide the hint of gloating in his eyes while pretending to be the peacemaker. Then, putting on a pitiful face, he looked at me with pleading eyes and said, "Mr. Miller, I'm truly sorry. You know Andrea usually has a soft character, but when it comes to my affairs, she gets nervous." Maybe she spoke a bit harshly. Hearing this, I forced a bitter, ironic smile. To be honest, I was stunned. In my memory, Andrea was always cold as ice. The word tenderness had nothing to do with her. I remember in college, when some thugs beat me up, she just called the police. That was it. I never saw a hint of tenderness from her. Not once. And yet, my heart had been completely hers. Fascinated by her like a dog smelling a bone, I chased her day and night for years. I firmly believed that if my heart were hot enough, I could melt that iceberg. Then came that business trip when the company was about to close and she ran out of money. Suddenly, she proposed to me herself, saying she wouldn't let these 6 years together go to waste. She said she'd make my wish come true. I thought I'd finally seen the light after the storm. I thought the iceberg had melted for me, but who would have guessed? She wasn't an iceberg at all. In the arms of another, she had already transformed into a tender refuge. That tenderness never belonged to me. Just thinking about it fills me with conflicting emotions. I can't understand what I've been defending for 6 years. Seeing me silent, Leo perhaps felt even more triumphant. Andrea and I already have a child. Love is never about who arrives first. Only with sincerity can things last. At this point, Mr. Miller, you should let her go. Please, give her back to me. After all, a child cannot be without his mother. His words make it seem like I'm the one destroying a family. Andrea hugs the child tightly. You don't have to humiliate yourself like that with him. This is all my fault. As she said it, she looked at me, and a flicker of guilt finally appeared in her eyes. But it was soon covered by determination. Kevin, asking you to marry me was an impulse of mine. After all, I owe you too much. That's why I wanted to compensate you with marriage. I thought I could settle for that. Leo then spoke up. Even though I went abroad that year, I always stayed in touch with Andrea. He paused with a flash of cunning in his eyes and continued. She was only with you out of spite, just to provoke my father. I love her, but I couldn't be by her side. So I thought if someone could take care of her, it would be a comfort. But reality proves it's not enough. I simply can't bear to live without him, Andrea said with a trembling voice, her eyes full of deep love. They embraced with passion as if no one else existed, as if they wanted to merge their souls. This scene was like a dagger that pierced me completely. In my fury, I laughed bitterly and shouted, so I've been a toy in your love game? I'm just a pawn, right? You treat infidelity like a life milestone. Doesn't it disgust you? Andrea, we've known each other for 10 years. We've been together for 6, and now you say that being with me was just settling? At this point, do you still take me for a fool, Andrea? It's clear you saw the company was about to go public and that I was no longer useful. That's why you threw me away without mercy. Andrea, are you sure you want to burn your bridges? I've given so much for you. You are so ruthless, I said bluntly. For the last time, I tried to wake her conscience. This was the last chance I was giving the woman I once loved. However, Andrea didn't appreciate it at all. With a sharp look, she cursed me with hatred. Kevin, your refusal to let go is truly pathetic. Now you think I'm bothering you? When you enjoyed everything I gave you, why didn't you say anything then? My heart froze completely and my love vanished in an instant. I finally saw this woman's true face. I had mistaken clouds for pearls. From now on, I won't be such a fool again. Fine, have it your way. The wedding is off. I spat these words coldly with a tone of infinite disappointment and determination. Andrea let out a disdainful giggle, as if what she was discarding was just an insignificant speck of mud on a shoe. Her beautiful face showed no regret at all. You said it yourself. Don't just stand there. Get out of my house. Leo could barely hide the smile on his lips, but he feigned sympathy while looking at me. Andrea, if you kick him out, now where will he go? I smiled sarcastically to myself. I want to see how long the company lasts. Andrea hugged Leo and looked at him with tenderness, whispering to calm him down. Only you are so soft-hearted, thinking of her. She's just an orphan, if not for charity. Who knows where she'd be now, cold and hungry. And yet she dares to shout at me. Where does she get the nerve? She curled her lips in contempt, mocking me further. We were never compatible. All these years, I'm the one who lowered myself for that beggar. If I hadn't lowered my standards, she wouldn't have even had the chance to get near me. I stared at Andrea, my eyes reflecting disbelief and heartbreaking pain. So this was her true opinion of me, hidden deep within her heart. I admitted, before the Gray family found me, I certainly was an orphan going from one foster home to another, but I never mentioned they had found me. I originally thought that after the wedding, I could tell her everything, but I never imagined she wouldn't give me that chance. After all these years, everything I've given without complaint, all my achievements, are worthless in her eyes. Andrea has truly trampled my dignity into the dust. Leo looked at me, a flash of fury in his eyes, and said bluntly, since Andrea loathes you so much, please leave right now. Don't worry, I'll take care of this house. He turned his head and glanced at the luxurious villa behind him. If he was faking it before, these words are now a direct provocation toward me. I am also a man of flesh and blood with dignity. How could I endure humiliation from a despicable lover? I replied immediately. I renovated this house with my money. The style fits my tastes. You have the nerve to steal my wife, so I guess living here won't bother you. I hope you're comfortable. Leo's face turned pale, then green. He looked at Andrea with eyes full of resentment. Andrea was about to defend him, but I didn't pay them any more attention. I grabbed my suitcase and turned to leave. Behind me, I heard Andrea comforting Leo. I'll have this decor torn down and renovated, Leo. I'll do it to your taste. I smiled slightly. That's what I expected. Why would I leave the decor I worked so hard on for others? Not just the decor. I'll take back everything I gave to Andrea's company. I didn't go to her house because the financial matters between Andrea and me aren't fully resolved yet. I need time to fix everything. Until then, I can't let anyone know my connection to the Gray family. I don't want to complicate the final split from Andrea. I spent the night organizing the property division documents. I worked until dawn the next day, my eyes so irritated I could barely open them. Just as I was about to rest, there was a fast, sharp knocking at the door. I recognized Andrea's voice. With my heart already dead, I didn't want to answer, but the knocking wouldn't stop. So rude. Worried about public decency, I had no choice but to go open it. I looked coldly at Andrea and Leo at the door, my face frozen. What? Andrea seemed like she'd never seen me so cold. She frowned, remembered her purpose, and snorted. Kevin, I never noticed how deep you are. Did you leak what happened at the wedding last night? Have you thought about the impact this will have on Leo and me? You're truly despicable. I was stunned. It took me a moment to understand. Andrea, you and Leo were together and you ran from the wedding. That leaked? Were the guests blind? Didn't they see it? If you want no one to know, don't do it. If you're afraid of shame, why do something so shameful? Since you did it, you must face the consequences. It has nothing to do with me. I'm on my own now. She sent the police to kidnap me. She'll regret every single thing she's done to me. For those who suffered through this pandemic, there is no mercy. I have a plan now. I'll give the project to Andrea, but I won't let her reach the heights of our country. Achieving this has been hard on our lives, leaving us scarred and broken. I remember the pain clearly, and it is still very bitter to swallow. Are you okay? Did something hit you? After checking on Leo, she glared at me. She said with tension, Kevin, I know you're mad at me, but if you dare to touch a single hair on Leo, I won't forgive you. Also, for our reputation's sake, you must publicly declare that you were the one who cheated on me first, and that's why Leo and I are together. Then I'll explain we separated by mutual agreement. I watched Andrea's lips moving. If I hadn't seen her speaking with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe the absurd words that just came out of her mouth. Andrea, I couldn't help but speak up. You really exceed my expectations every time. You cheated. You betrayed me. You trampled my dignity and my feelings. Why should I carry the blame for your mistakes and dirty my own name? You only think of yourselves. You only care about your reputation. What about my face, my feelings, and my dignity? When you did this, did you ever think about the impact it would have on me? Truly, what one can't have is always what they crave most. The favored ones are always arrogant. It's all my fault for loving without principles or limits before. Why does she trample me like this now? Kevin, are you rejecting me? Andrea's face darkened. Don't think that because you helped me before, you can do whatever you want here. Don't try to use those tricks to keep a connection with me. If you don't do what I say, then leave the capital right now and never show your face again. Only then will public opinion finally calm down. I looked at her coldly, my expression indifferent. When you have the power to control the entire city, then you can come give me orders. I refused her again and again. Andrea felt humiliated. In that moment, Leo took her hand, stepped forward, and spoke to me. In 1 month, Andrea and I will celebrate our wedding. Could you come and bless us? I really hope to receive your blessing. I knew exactly what Leo was doing. It was a deliberate humiliation. If it had been yesterday, maybe I would have been moved. But today, after seeing Andrea's true face and losing all my illusions about her, I realized she isn't a big deal. She doesn't deserve to be remembered. She doesn't deserve a single place in my heart. As for completely forgetting this past, I'm sure it's only a matter of time. So, without expression, I looked at Leo. Oh, really? Then I truly must congratulate you. You finally managed to become official. She can come or not. Leo, you don't need to humiliate yourself like this. Andrea felt sorry seeing Leo humble himself before me. She shot me a cold look. Listen, Kevin, you're too poor. You don't belong in my circle. Don't waste any more of my time. She seemed afraid that I would cling to her. Or maybe she thought if I stayed in the capital, it meant I wasn't over her yet. But she didn't know that the moment she turned her back and left at the wedding, my heart was already completely dead. And with my actions, I showed my attitude. I pushed Leo hard and slammed the door shut. If it weren't for the property division agreement, which wasn't quite ready yet, I wouldn't have wanted to say a single word more. With Andrea and the others outside the door, Andrea grit her teeth and screamed fiercely. Kevin. Then, Leo said something in a low voice. Through the door, the voice was muffled. I couldn't hear it clearly. But that same night, I understood what Leo and Andrea had planned at the door during the day. Night fell, and everything was silent. At the moment when everyone should have been fast asleep, intense and blushing sounds came from the next room. One after another, without a pause. They lasted for 2 whole hours, disturbing me to the point of irritation. I couldn't take it anymore. I was about to complain to the front desk when I heard a very familiar voice. Leo, Leo. All the blood in my body seemed to freeze suddenly. That voice, I knew it all too well. It was Andrea's voice, and she sounded completely breathless. Did they know I was in the room next door? Were they doing it on purpose? Was it for the thrill, or to provoke me, to force me to leave the capital? I forcefully suppressed the rage that was about to explode in my eyes. I forced myself to ignore the noise next door. I knew I couldn't leave. On one hand, I didn't want to give Andrea and the others the satisfaction. On the other, tomorrow I could hand the property division agreement to Andrea. Once she signed, there would be no more ties between us. I just had to endure this night. It seemed they deliberately wanted me to hear it. Clearly, the noises grew louder. In the end, I had no choice but to ask the front desk to buy me some noise-canceling headphones. The next day, as soon as I opened my room door, the one next door opened too. Andrea walked out glowing. She looked at me, and before she could speak, I had already handed her a document. Coldly, I said, "This is the property division agreement. If you have no objections, sign it as soon as possible." Andrea's expression froze slightly. Soon, her eyes filled with indignation, as if by doing this, I was some opportunist just trying to take advantage of her. Seeing her face, I felt that the buyout amount I had written in the agreement for my shares in the company was still far too low. But who could have imagined that the agreement I had carefully prepared after 2 sleepless nights would be treated like this? Andrea took one look, grabbed it, and ripped it into pieces with a single tear. Then, she looked down at me with arrogance and said, I won't give you a single cent. As for the shares you hold in my company, you'd better transfer them to me obediently. Otherwise, even if you cling to the company, I have many ways to make sure you can't stay. Don't think I'm cruel, considering you've been with me for 6 years. I don't want to go to extremes. I'll give you $10,000 as a breakup settlement. Could you ever find another woman as excellent and high status as me? Take these $10,000 and get out of here fast. Don't show your face in front of me again. Don't ruin the happiness between me and Leo. We wealthy people don't want to be entangled with someone like you, who reeks of poverty. In the future, don't tell anyone I'm your ex-girlfriend. I looked at the fragments. Every word Andrea said was like a hammer blow. She completely destroyed the little affection I had left from these 6 years. It turns out Andrea is not just heartless, but her actions are simply inhuman. Andrea, you'd better remember everything you've done to me now. Thoughts of revenge sprouted wildly in my heart. I turned around abruptly and walked with long strides back into the room. I grabbed my suitcase and headed toward the hotel entrance. Just as I arrived, a luxurious, discreet black car pulled up in front of me. The door opened, and a woman with a slender figure and a beautiful face stepped out quickly. She was holding a black umbrella. I looked up at her. In that moment, the emotions I had been holding back overflowed completely. My eyes reddened instantly. With a choking voice, I cried out, Sister. This woman was my closest sister. Her brow was deeply furrowed, and her eyes showed great concern. She took off the black trench coat she was wearing and placed it gently over my shoulders. Although her face was somber when she spoke, her voice carried a soft tenderness. Are you upset? She murmured. She's just a despicable woman. Just come home and take proper care of the company. I will make her kneel before you and beg for your forgiveness. Isabella hugged me, and we got into the car. Then, she handed me a hand warmer. Take this to warm up. Don't catch a cold. I thanked her instinctively, and a strange warmth warmed my heart. After the luxury car drove away, Andrea and Leo were still standing in the same spot, looking toward where the car had gone with complex expressions. Leo curled his lips and said sarcastically, no wonder he canceled the wedding. It turns out he's climbed onto a higher branch. Andrea made a grim face and snorted. Are you imagining things? What rich woman would notice a poor guy like him? Maybe he just called an Uber to show off. Hearing this, Leo felt a bit more relieved. He put his arm around Andrea, and the two returned to the villa talking and laughing. Meanwhile, inside the car, the heat from the hand warmer slowly dissipated the cold in my heart. My gaze landed involuntarily on Sarah, who was in the driver's seat. I remember when my grandfather found me. He told me that year, my mother and Sarah's mother gave birth in the same hospital. An earthquake struck, and in the chaos, the two babies were swapped. She has the title of president, but many important projects and key decisions in the company are actually controlled by me. Therefore, Andrea seems strong, but she is actually weak on the outside. In contrast, Sarah has an innate authority. Just by standing there, she gives off the pressure of a high-ranking person. However, she treats her subordinates very well. Once, I represented the company at a project launch organized by the Miller Group. Sarah, as the spokesperson, spoke eloquently on stage. In that moment, her charisma deeply impacted me. I truly felt it. At that time, I understood that the Miller Group employees admired her from the bottom of their hearts. Just as I was thinking about this, the car had already stopped at the entrance of the Miller mansion. In reality, everything is under my control. Therefore, Andrea seems strong, but she is actually weak on the outside and fragile on the inside. On the other hand, Sarah, her authority is innate. Just by standing there, she gives off the pressure of someone of high rank, but treats her subordinates very well. On one occasion, representing the family and attending the project conference organized by the Miller family, I understood that the Miller company, with Sarah as spokesperson, spoke with ease on stage. In that moment, her charisma deeply impacted me, and I really felt that the Miller family employees admired her from the heart. While I was thinking about that, the car had already stopped at the entrance of the Miller mansion. As soon as I opened the car door and looked up, I saw the old man standing there waiting at the entrance. His nose was red from the cold, and seeing me, his once stern face instantly filled with affection. He hurried over. Kevin, my dear grandson, you're finally back. His voice trembled with emotion, and my heart skipped a beat. Before the Miller family found me, I was just a wandering orphan without a fixed home. I suffered many hardships, and now I'm the Miller heir, while Sarah, at my side, has become the adopted daughter. In the last 6 years, I gave myself completely to Andrea, always busy with her affairs, but I neglected the Miller family. Meanwhile, Sarah silently took care of the family and looked after Grandpa with great care. Thinking about this, a deep sense of guilt washed over me. I tightly gripped Grandpa's hand. Grandpa, I'm sorry. I'm back late. From now on, I'll do everything you tell me. As long as you're safe, that's enough, Grandpa said with reddened eyes. He nodded gently and led me toward the mansion. Come, Grandpa will show you our home. This is the room we've prepared for you. Opening the door, I saw the room filled with luxury brand watches, clothes, and shoes. Since Andrea valued these things so much, over the years, I'd unknowingly learned about these luxury items. I recognized immediately that many were haute couture and some were limited editions. They had to be reserved months in advance. Seeing these gifts, I understood deep down that Grandpa truly loved me and longed for my return. So, even though I didn't care for these things, I was moved and said, Grandpa, thank you. I like them a lot. After all, blood is thicker than water. Despite the fact that we hadn't lived together much, the old man, with his sharp insight, said to me, thank you, I like them a lot. He noticed something in the subtle changes of my expression. Then he said, come, Grandpa will take you somewhere else. Next to the bed was a desk with a simple pen holder fixed on top. They had also installed a projector in the room. This layout fit my living and working habits perfectly. Seeing this, my wandering heart felt a sense of belonging to a home for the first time. Before, I didn't understand why women clung so much to having a house. In this moment, I finally understood that a home is life's comfort and acceptance. Seeing the light on my face, the old man let out a frank laugh. It seems you like this room, huh? It was Sarah who prepared it personally. He said this while looking toward the floor below. On the sofa downstairs, Sarah was working with deep concentration, but occasionally she looked up toward us. The old man, seeing this scene, laughed even harder. He turned to me and said, Sarah said you would like something like this. It seems she knows you better than I do. Following the old man's gaze down, I saw Sarah's slender white neck and its smooth lines. It gave me a different sense of tenderness. I also remembered the hand warmer Sarah had given me when I got into the car. It seemed that when she was with me, she was always so sweet and warm. I knew it clearly in my heart. Sarah knowing my tastes so thoroughly was no accident. She must have purposely looked into it in private. The strange thing is, not only did it not bother me, but I felt comforted inside. How good it feels to be remembered and respected. And all of this was exactly what I had never experienced in my 6 years with Andrea. Like when I told Andrea countless times that I'm allergic to seafood, that even touching it causes a red rash on my skin. But the next time, Andrea would still ask me to help her peel shrimp. At dinner, I glanced at the table, and sure enough, there was no trace of seafood. A kind maid joked with the old man, Sir, from now on, there will be no seafood in this house. The eldest miss gave special instructions. The young master is allergic to seafood. There can't be any of that, not even her favorite seafood porridge. I felt a bit guilty. I was going to tell them not to make exceptions for me, that I could be careful myself. But Sarah had already served a bowl of nourishing porridge. She offered it to the old man and said in a low voice, Grandpa, most seafood is cold-natured. You shouldn't eat it all the time either. It's not good for your health. This nourishing porridge is good. Have a little more. You'll surely live to be 100. You girl, the old man laughed, giving Sarah a small pat, joking with me again. Kevin, you've just returned, and I've already lost favor in Sarah's heart. It seems this old man can't compete with you. I knew Grandpa was joking, so I played along a little. This relaxed and cordial atmosphere instantly dissipated my newcomer's shyness. This relaxed and harmonious environment immediately cleared away my initial timidness. I feel more and more like part of this family. I'm fitting in quickly, but I have a doubt in my heart regarding Grandpa, me, and Sarah. Could it be that in Grandpa's heart, Sarah and I aren't just siblings? After dinner, Sarah had me go to her study. The study was very large, and the office supplies were duplicated, placed on the left and right, as if taking the center axis as a reference. The left and right sides were a perfect replica. Sarah pointed to the right side and told me, if you're ready, I'll take you to the company as soon as possible so you can get familiar with corporate affairs. At first, you'll share this study to work, and once you master the business, if you want to redecorate an exclusive study, just tell the butler to arrange it. What do you think? Hearing this, I thought Sarah wanted me to join the company to help her. Of course, I accepted immediately, since as a member of the Miller family, it's my duty. Besides, Sarah's arrangement was meticulous and attentive. I nodded instantly. Sister, I'll do everything according to your arrangement. Sarah tilted her head slightly and smiled. You can also call me by my name, like Grandpa, she told me. I replied instinctively, all right, sister. Sarah looked stunned and didn't say anything else. I left, returning to the bedroom that Sarah had carefully decorated for me. I had barely sat down when I received an email from the legal department at my old job. The email said there were accounting problems in the project I was responsible for before and asked me to return immediately for an investigation. I glanced at the accounting points listed in the email, and 4 words surfaced in my heart: fabricated accusation. All these years, even the expenses for custom suits needed for the company were paid from my personal account without using company funds. Of course, I don't recognize those so-called problematic accounts. I couldn't help but remember the property division agreement Andrea tore up. It's not hard to guess that behind that email from the legal department is Andrea's order. I just didn't expect Andrea would go this far to kick me out of the company and keep it with my shares. She doesn't hesitate to frame me for a crime so serious that if these charges stick, I'll spend at least 10 years in prison. Look at this woman I met 10 years ago, whom I loved with all my heart and treated with sincerity for 6 years. Before, I was blinded by love. But now I stare at that email and a flash of cold, sharp light crosses my eyes. I have to make Andrea pay a painful price. First, I replied to the email officially, and then I went back to the study. Grandpa was still using the company email and told me I couldn't access the company server, but seeing me enter, he immediately stopped his work and looked at me. Smiling, he said, Kevin, you have something to tell me, right? Tell me everything. His gaze was full of encouragement, like a father urging his son to express his thoughts. I felt a bit awkward and touched. My nose. It wasn't very appropriate. I might put Grandpa in a difficult spot, just as I was thinking of. Reconsidering, I saw Grandpa checking the company email again, and he told me he would handle the access issues. He seemed to call a senior executive at the Miller Group responsible for the project and repeated my words exactly. Grandpa didn't ask for a reason, and the manager on the other end didn't ask questions either. He just waited for orders. After Grandpa hung up the phone, I couldn't help but ask, what if I did this for personal reasons? Would you help me anyway? Grandpa looked at me calmly and said seriously, Kevin, we're family. Don't talk about helping. That's too formal. Even if it's for personal interest, what does it matter? This is your home, and the Miller Group is yours too. No matter what you want to do, we support you based on trust. Besides, your proven ability is evident to everyone. I know that in doing this, you have your own considerations. I looked at the trust in Grandpa's eyes, and something seemed to stir gently in my heart. Certainly, the plan I proposed was on one hand for revenge, and on the other, for the benefit of the Miller Group. After all, when I was at the Miller Group, I ensured that every joint project with my old company was flawless. But now that I've left, those projects I personally negotiated and managed will be impossible for them to sustain. Cutting these ties actually prevents losses for the Miller Group, but their total trust reminds me of Andrea again. Back then, every time I worked hard to land a project and requested company funds, Andrea would interrogate me like a criminal. I used to think she was just being cautious. But compared to the Miller Group, I see her prudence was nothing more than a complete lack of trust in me. In this moment, I feel even more how rare and valuable it is to be truly trusted by someone. I made a silent vow. I will never allow the trust the Miller family placed in me to be betrayed. I went back to my room, and suddenly, my phone screen lit up with a notification. A message appeared in my college group chat. My wedding is on the 9th of next month. You're all invited. The sender was the same woman who abandoned me at our wedding to go to the movies with her lover and child, Andrea. She even attached a wedding photo with Arthur. As soon as the photo posted, the group chat exploded into chaos. You two are a perfect match. I'll definitely be there on time for the wedding banquet. One person wrote, I wish the newlyweds a long life together. Grow old and have kids soon. Then, immediately after, Andrea added casually, my son with Arthur is already born. The group went silent for a heartbeat. Then, it was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast life moves. The notifications kept pouring in, one after another, praising their beautiful family. I watched the screen as my former classmates showered the cheaters with endless compliments. The irony was suffocating, but I didn't feel the sting I expected. I felt cold. They have no idea what's coming. Let them celebrate while they still can. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. Then the chat was flooded by a new wave of messages about how fast my life moves. I still hold 40% of the original shares, but now Arthur thinks he has wings and has forgotten how he got here. He despises my words. He says with arrogance and pride, now, besides me, nobody will want your shares. I'll give you 50,000. Take the money and don't bother me again. It's 49,000 more than the 1,000 from before. But these miserable 49,000 don't even equal my previous monthly salary at the company. I dedicated 6 whole years to Group I. In the end, he wants to get rid of me with so little. It's an impossible dream. I tell him directly, you want to get rid of me with 50,000? Impossible. Arthur's tone becomes more impatient, like a burst of words. Do you really expect me to change my mind? Look at yourself, Henry, after giving your body and soul for 6 years. But you know what? Everything you've given me is just heavy chains. They choke me. I can't breathe. The company isn't going anywhere. What the hell do you want to do? Arthur was getting more worked up, almost screaming. I listened to him, and not only did I not get angry, I couldn't help but let out a laugh. I am a shareholder of the company. What do you think I'm doing here? You want to buy my shares? Give me 200 million first. As soon as the money arrives, I'm gone instantly. Arthur was so furious that he couldn't speak. During these 6 years, I've known the company's financial situation inside and out. If I ask for such an exorbitant figure, it's not because I expect Arthur to repent and kneel down begging. It's to confront him, to disgust him. Otherwise, these 6 years of humiliation and effort would have been in vain. Being tolerant with Arthur is being unfair to the treatment I suffered myself. But Arthur became enraged, jumping at the phone. 200 million? Only someone as vulgar as you could say that. Even though Arthur wasn't in front of me, I could imagine him at that moment, eyes sparking, wanting to eat me alive. That is the true face of Arthur, selfish, greedy, and ungrateful. But at that moment, after the series of changes, I was tempered with a firm heart. I was capable of facing everything with serenity. I didn't get angry or irritated. I responded calmly. If I am someone vulgar, then what are you? A disloyal creature. Ungrateful. With that, I hung up without hesitation and immediately set Arthur's contact to do not disturb. After hanging up, I fell into a heavy silence. A sense of emptiness washed over me. Like smoking alone on a street at midnight. I had certainly taken my revenge. Hurting Arthur had satisfied me, but in the stillness of the night, the emptiness followed me. Like a shadow, it was so real I couldn't ignore it. I remembered when I helped his company go public. That was my goal. Back then, I was as busy as a spinning top. Exhausted to the extreme, yet I felt immensely fulfilled. And now, when I believed that Arthur and I were joined like flesh and bone, his cruelty forced me to tear myself away from him. This separation felt like ripping out my own flesh and blood while they were still connected. And just like that, I felt lifeless, a pain that reached my very bones. Although the wound had closed and scarred over, the shadow of the pain rose up occasionally, reminding me of my past suffering. Right at that moment, a fresh and pleasant scent suddenly reached my nose. It was an inexplicable aroma. I hadn't even reacted yet when a soft body wrapped me in an embrace. It was Chloe. I had been so focused on getting revenge on Arthur that for a moment, I forgot Chloe was still in the room. Her embrace felt like a warm fireplace. The sensation she transmitted was immediate warmth. Like winter, making you want to draw closer without a cure. Unable to help myself, I raised my hand, as if I wanted to draw more warmth from her on this lonely night. But just as my hand brushed Chloe's soft neck, I remembered her pale skin I saw during the day. Suddenly, in a flash of clarity, I felt as if I had been burned. I hurried to gently pull away. I looked at Chloe, but in that moment, Chloe had already pulled away from me. Kevin, you've suffered so many injustices. Although she had already investigated everything between me and Arthur, and knew his vile actions, hearing Arthur's shameless attitude with her own ears, she couldn't imagine how I felt facing all of that in person. And I, seeing the compassion in Chloe's eyes, thought that her previous gesture had perhaps only been to comfort me. I had even lost my own composure. I was perplexed for a moment, then pulled back. I understood why she assumed that, so I asked her in turn, do you think I'm forcing Arthur to spend $200 million to buy my shares, knowing he can't pay, just to have an excuse to stay entangled with him? Of course not. The reason I want Arthur to buy my shares in the company is precisely to break my relationship with him completely. But I'm not willing to let him have them at a low price. Saying this, I remembered something else. I asked Chloe to eventually cancel all collaboration with the company, though the news hadn't leaked yet. Arthur didn't fully know yet. Once it's finalized, the company's shares will surely plummet. By then, it would be even more impossible to sell my shares for $200 million. Besides, seeing how stingy Arthur was a moment ago, to get him to buy my shares before the news is published, I'll have to think of a good method. Just as an idea occurred to me, Chloe spoke up. Kevin, I have a way to make Arthur willing to pay $200 million for your shares. And what's more, he'll be begging to buy them. Seeing the light of confidence in Chloe's eyes, I suddenly became interested, so I didn't mention my own plan. I just told Chloe, then I'll be watching. 3 days later, Arthur called me again. He proposed a meeting to discuss the stock purchase. Ever since I saw his true face, I really didn't want to face that disgusting expression, so I immediately said coldly, if you have something to say it over the phone. As for the transfer agreement, it can be sent by local courier. There's no need for us to meet. Arthur tried to respond, but I knew. Surely Chloe had acted in secret to make this fish bite the hook. Even though I didn't know what method she used, I cooperated fully in that moment, wanting to tighten the line. And I hung up on Arthur immediately. I hung up decisively again, leaving only the busy tone on the phone. This time, barely a minute later, Arthur's phone rang. Persistently again. This time I deliberately waited 3 minutes before answering. Slowly, speaking with a firm, indisputable tone, I said, Arthur, if you dare provoke me again, I won't just hang up. I'll block all your contacts. Then you won't be able to find me. The other side fell silent. Moments later, Arthur spoke. Again, although his tone held a burning fury, his attitude had notably improved. Kevin, let's talk properly about the stock transfer. Next, Arthur seemed to fear I would hang up again. No matter what I said, he no longer contradicted me. As for what he was really planning in his mind, I didn't bother guessing. After all, none of this had anything to do with me anymore. Finally, I managed to sell my shares in the company for $200 million. Looking at the exact $200 million in my account, I felt stunned for a moment, as if I were in a dream. This piqued my curiosity even more. What method had Chloe used? Even though things had progressed well, I actually had my own idea for what came next. From my many years of fighting in the company, I knew there were too many dark internal secrets that could never come to light. They weren't just trade secrets. Exposing just a few could make Arthur feel true fear. But I understood that such a negotiation would be a tug of war, not only mentally and physically exhausting, but it would also require a great deal of time. In comparison, Chloe's method seemed like a perfect overlap of advantages playing out today. I was thinking of indirectly questioning Arthur, but as soon as the paperwork was done, he dropped his mask and shouted, Kevin, you've offended the entire Hill clan, wait for your death. Even if you kneel and lick my shoes, I won't help you. I listened, completely confused. Offended the clan? But I'm a Hill myself, the young master. Before I could process it, Chloe found me again and handed me a plan. These are the arrangements I have for you next. Take a look. If anything seems inappropriate, just say so, and I'll modify it. I thought it was a work schedule, but it was a meticulously designed travel plan. Besides some important dinners, the rest was sightseeing under the guise of inspections. The social events were top tier, clearly building bridges for me. People at Arthur's level couldn't even touch the edge of an entry ticket. I don't understand Chloe's intention, but I didn't ask. I just said, I have no problem, I'll follow your arrangements. The clothes Chloe prepared for me are complete, but every time she takes me to a banquet, she still has a high-fashion suit custom-made for me. From the moment the service team takes my measurements, she stays by my side through the whole process, getting ready together. At every business or high-society event, Chloe stayed right by my side, introducing me to everyone we met. This is the young master the Hill family, just recovered. He has joined the group. At one banquet, I heard someone mutter quietly, is Chloe going to lose favor now? Maybe she'll have to leave the Hill group soon. Chloe also heard those absurd comments, but her face remained calm as ever, as if she hadn't heard them. She even actively comforted me, asking me not to take those words seriously. I looked at Chloe. The reflection of myself shone in her eyes, and for an instant, through her, I seemed to see my past self, a wretch, the one who once gave himself completely to Chloe, without reservation. And now, I had become the object of such passionate devotion. Faced with her unreserved enthusiasm, if I said my heart wasn't moved, that would be impossible. I'm not heartless. Taking the chance to link up with the Hill group, they dragged me into an endless conversation. Seeing this, I remained unfazed and put an arm around Chloe, addressing everyone present. I spoke in a voice that wasn't loud but firm. Chloe has always managed the Hill group. She knows the group better than I do. The future of the Hill group depends on my sister. All shareholders and directors have great respect for her and support her fully. The message implied in these words was more than obvious. Chloe's position in the Hill group would not be affected in the slightest by my return. This defense of mine made Chloe's eyes turn red for the first time. Instinctively, she grabbed my arm tightly, filled with emotion. However, she didn't take my words completely seriously, thinking I only said it to protect myself and stabilize the Hill group. At the same time, her heart reaffirmed the determination to clear obstacles for me even faster. She wished for me to soon take the position of leader of the Hill group before everyone's eyes. After the banquet, Chloe asked me, I researched your childhood before, but since so much time has passed, I didn't find anything detailed. Could you take me to where you lived as a child? Seeing the confusion in my eyes, she hurried to explain. I want to try to be part of your early life, even if it's only in this way. I understood her intention then. She wanted to enter my past to make up for what I lacked. However, my childhood was lonely and helpless. I didn't want to remember it anymore. Later, life calmed down, but it was just drifting from place to place to make a living. It was monotonous with nothing special worth remembering. As for the final stage with Isabella, what I once believed was finding the love of my life turned out to be a nightmare of misfortune. Now that I remember it, only bitterness and rage remain. There is even less that is worth recalling. I hid the complex emotions in my eyes. I didn't want to disappoint Chloe, so I took the initiative to suggest, my past really isn't worth remembering. Instead, why don't you take me to where you lived as a child? Chloe's eyes sparkled slightly. She called out to me eagerly and said, then I'll take you to a place I thought Chloe would take me to. Places like the school where she studied. I didn't expect her to take me to a hospital. Chloe explained, this is the hospital where the earthquake happened that year, and also the place where we were switched at birth, the starting point of our intertwined destiny. It was then that I learned that, ever since she knew of my existence, she had funded this hospital, just to commemorate the start of this wonderful connection of ours. Then, Chloe took me to an abandoned amusement park. Inside was a broken-down vehicle with its doors locked. Chloe pulled a key from her bag and opened the car door. My secret base when I was a child. They always forced me to go to school, to take all kinds of private lessons and interest courses, besides learning all sorts of complex manners and social skills. When I got bored, I used to come here alone to calm my mind. Only here did I feel like the pure Chloe, not the Chloe bound by the identity of the Hill family. I looked at her, and in her eyes, I saw the memory instantly. I completely understood the deep meaning of her words. As if fearing I would misunderstand, Chloe hurried to explain. Kevin, don't think I'm just showing off or being pretentious, but either way, I sincerely thank Grandpa and the Hill family for everything they've given me. I firmly believed her words because I saw clearly that she had always been giving back to the Hill family through concrete actions. I had heard Grandpa say that before Chloe knew of my existence or her true identity, she already had a great sense of responsibility. The Hill family had always raised her as the primary successor. As expected, the pressure she endured was enormous. However, she never backed down, and upon learning of my existence, she began to feel that everything she had was a gift from others and that she had to return it. That's why she worked even harder than before to pay them back. Thinking of this, I looked at Chloe and told her sincerely, Sister, you said before that the Hill family doesn't talk about helping. Now I say the Hill family even less so. If we don't talk about gratitude and giving back, that would be too distant. Hearing this, Chloe suddenly smiled, like a lush rose blooming all at once. Fine. Then from now on, we won't mention this again. Then, Chloe continued excitedly, introducing every detail of the place. She pointed out the rock she tripped on entering the secret base. She spoke of her nervousness hearing strange sounds in the amusement park while alone, and also the thrilling experience of facing a snake for the first time using wit and courage. In that moment, Chloe was no longer that Chloe burdened with the expectations of the family and the people. Before me, there was only a lively girl full of vitality, sharing her past without reservations. That feeling was as if I had never been absent during her past years. Night fell, and the two of us returned to the villa. Naturally, I took the handbag from Chloe's hands. It wasn't a gesture of calculated politeness, but rather that effortless complicity and naturalness between family members. When Chloe served me a glass of warm milk, I no longer limited myself to a distant apology. Instead, I asked her, "The truth is, I like putting a layer of milk foam on top. Do you like it? I know how to make it. Want me to add some for you?" Chloe keenly sensed the change in my attitude. The corners of her lips lifted involuntarily. Her smile grew warmer. "All right, then I want to see. How do you make the milk foam?" In the kitchen, Chloe watched my back, her heart full of emotion. The plan she had meticulously prepared was because she truly felt the distance that existed between us. She just wanted, through those arrangements, to send me a message. She sincerely wished for me to return to this family, so I'd have company and no longer have to fight alone. She also wanted me to understand I could let my guard down and trust her. Now, it seemed I had finally understood her good intentions, and I responded with concrete actions. I began trying to trust her, to open my heart. In this way, Chloe was already satisfied. Throughout that entire month, Chloe stayed by my side. She took me to the company, and together we managed various business deals. She guided me on business trips to other cities. In our free time, we also traveled together to many places. On normal days, she would give me all kinds of gifts. During that month, the rumor that the adopted daughter and the son of the Hill family were together, facing the business world as one, spread throughout the entire social circle. The media wanted to uncover my true face, but none succeeded, and I was doing very well. Not feeling the pain of losing Sarah at all, I knew that it was all thanks to Chloe. She joyfully filled the emotional void I felt. With pure happiness, she slowly healed the wounds in my heart. Time flew by. Soon, Sarah's wedding day arrived. Sarah truly loved Oliver, and the wedding was held at the only 6-star hotel in the city. They booked the entire venue, and even her wedding dress was exclusive haute couture. She sent invitations to numerous business celebrities, as well as old classmates and friends. Oliver also sent me an invitation, but I didn't even look at it. However, on the day of the wedding, I went anyway. I didn't expect that, as soon as I arrived, Tiffany would stop me. Tiffany was a college friend of Sarah and mine, now a senior engineer. At that moment, Tiffany's gaze toward me was full of undisguised contempt. "Leo, today is Sarah's happy day. Are you here to cause trouble? And on top of that, you're wearing fake clothes from head to toe. Aren't you ashamed to make a fool of yourself?" Tiffany reached out her hand to kick me out. Out. Get out of here now, Tiffany. Have you forgotten how you achieved your current success?" I narrowed my eyes. Looking at Tiffany coldly, I remembered back then. Tiffany lost all her money in a small business. She also accumulated a debt of several millions. With no way out, she was at the point of not being able to go on. I was the one who lent her a hand, helped her pay the debt, and got her a position at the company. That was how she could have the stable, middle-class life she has now. But who would have thought she'd become an ingrate, just barking away? What is it that has made you so shameless toward the person who helped you? Hearing this, she stopped suddenly. I know, she's just remembering the past, really. I didn't want to bring up those old secrets of hers, but at that moment, other classmates also started insulting me. "If you're invited, do you really dare to show up? Or do you still have hopes for Sarah? If so, that would be pathetic. Leo, I advise you to have some dignity. Don't wait for the security guards to throw you out. You'll lose face completely." I shot a cold look at those classmates who were talking. I felt a sense of irony in my heart. These people, every single one of them, had been helped by me in the past. In this world, there are so many ingrates that it's impossible to count them. I hope that when they discover my true identity later, they remain as arrogant as they are now. Just then, Sarah spotted me. Walking with long strides and a haughty air, she headed toward me. From her superior position, she gave me a piercing look. "Leo, I don't want to resort to violence on my wedding day." I looked at her, and I couldn't help but feel in my heart that the difference between loving and not loving is so enormous. When it was our wedding, she was able to leave me alone, facing the chaos by myself, enduring the mockery and difficulties from the guests. But at her wedding with Oliver, she cares so much about my presence. However, that momentary discomfort in my heart quickly dissipated. I regained a serene smile on my face. "Sarah, if you kick me out now, you'll regret it later. I didn't come today as your ex to sabotage the wedding." As if she had heard an incredible joke, she burst out laughing. "Regret it? My biggest regret is having been with you for 6 years, putting up with you. You've already offended the Leo Corporation, and you still say I'll regret it? Better worry if you'll have a place to drop dead. Guards, throw him out of here." As she said this, several security guards in black suits approached. They closed in on me. Hearing I had offended the Leo Corporation, those classmates who mocked me before wanted to suck up to Sarah and score points with the company. Hoping to impress any Leo reps who might arrive, they rolled up their sleeves, ready to act. "Leave these minor matters in our hands," one of them shouted. "Don't worry, Sarah. While I'm here, I assure you that at your wedding to Mr. Leo, No stray dog or cat will dare cause trouble. Leo has actually dared to offend the Leo Corporation? Is he suicidal? I heard their people are coming today. Sarah and her family's arrogant air shifted as someone approached from afar. I turned around. I saw Marcus helping the grandfather, walking toward me. Marcus wore a charcoal coat that highlighted his refined, exquisitely handsome face. His features looked carved from stone, with black-rimmed glasses on his high nose. Behind the lenses, his gaze was ice-cold. Sarah's initial arrogance vanished instantly. Mr. Leo, you've arrived. She transformed into a groveling sycophant, addressing Marcus and the elder. Mr. Leo with deep respect. She noticed both of their eyes were fixed on me. Sarah, thinking she understood why, rushed to say, this guy is just a lapdog who doesn't know his place. I'll throw him out right now so he doesn't bother you. Before she finished, a sharp crack echoed. Marcus suddenly raised his hand with all his might. He delivered a powerful slap to Sarah's face. After the blow, Marcus stood tall, his shoulder not moving an inch after releasing his hand. In contrast, Sarah's face swelled instantly as she staggered back several steps from the impact. Everyone stared in shock. Marcus moved his lips slightly. If I heard correctly, it seems you wanted to kick out my brother is the rightful lord of the Leo family, the future helmsman of the Leo group. Do you really think he wants you? Are you still living in a dream? Those words dropped like a bomb, plunging the place into absolute silence. Even the air felt strange. At that moment, the elder Mr. Leo, as if to confirm Marcus's words, took a step forward. He gave me an affectionate pat on the shoulder and spoke softly. Leo, what have I always told you? When you're out, don't be too tolerant. When you need to be firm, be firm. Look, I finally understood the whole situation. It turns out that before, when the Leo executives were in contact with Sarah, they mentioned they didn't want me as a shareholder in the company anymore because they felt my identity didn't fit a small firm like Leo Corp at all. Sarah, on her own, thought I had offended the company. That's why she even offered $200 million for an amicable separation. She was in a hurry to buy my shares. Perhaps Sarah had also dreamed of boarding the Leo family ship. The company's stock would skyrocket. And then, never mind $200 million, not even $2 billion would matter. She could easily pay it back, which is why she agreed so quickly to buy my shares. You all planned to kick me out of the company. But Marcus, hearing the explanation she maintained, simply laughed. It was an extremely mocking laugh. I think what my employee meant was that this little company doesn't deserve to have my brother, with his billions in net worth, as a shareholder. Too bad, Sarah, that you look down on my brother so much. Sarah, your eyes are completely useless. You have no vision. Sarah stared back at Marcus's piercing gaze. That cutting light capable of destroying everything made her realize inside that she had probably already been deceived. But as long as the other party doesn't admit it, she can't do anything. Much less would she dare to force them to confess. Otherwise, if the prestigious Leo clan openly confronted her, wouldn't she be reduced to rubble in an instant? At that moment, Sarah had no choice but to apologize. She suddenly knelt in front of Marcus. Director Leo, it's not like that. I don't intend to kick out your brother. I really didn't know Leo was your brother. Sarah really didn't know. I can attest to that. After all, in these 6 years together, I never revealed my identity. In my early years, I was moved from family to family. But as soon as they had biological children, they cast me aside, completely ignored. When the Leo family finally found me, for a long time I felt like it was a dream. I couldn't believe it was real. Besides, in the Leo family there was already an exceptional Marcus. Compared to him, I felt a certain inferiority. And when I decided to be with Sarah, my grandfather was the first to oppose it. He made a face and said directly that Sarah had bad intentions, that she wasn't the right partner for life. Back then, I thought my grandfather was prejudiced against Sarah. But now, looking back, I must admit my grandfather really has a lot of experience. His eye for judging people is very precise. To be with Sarah forever, I left the Leo family without hesitation. Leaving, of course, meant I didn't have the nerve to ask the Leo family for help. But later, when I saw Sarah unemployed, struggling against the Leo family, I felt backed into a corner. I had no choice but to go beg my grandfather. And seeing me so determined to be with Sarah, he finally gave in and agreed to help. Luckily, there was that wedding, which gave me the chance to see Sarah's horrible face clearly. Luckily, I didn't wake up too late. There is still a chance to start everything over. At that moment, my grandfather didn't even give Sarah a chance to explain herself. He ordered directly, "You ungrateful girl, you don't deserve the Leo family's support. Marcus, withdraw the investment. Blacklist Sarah's company completely." Hearing this, Sarah turned pale and turned to beg Marcus for mercy. But Marcus, with a calm gaze, looked at me. He said slowly, "Sarah, I think you're begging the wrong person." Sarah realized it then and, like a dog, crawled on her knees toward me. "No, please, Leo, for the love we once had, ask your grandfather to stop. My company is on the verge of collapse, and with what your grandfather just said about blacklisting me, I won't have even the slightest chance to resist today." Seeing this disgusting scene from Sarah, it just seemed ridiculous to me. I mocked her. "Now you come to beg me? I already warned you. Don't regret it later. And as for blacklisting your company, so what? Weren't you just bragging earlier that today you would make my life a living hell? The tables have turned. This is your deserved punishment. A woman as vile as Sarah doesn't deserve a single shred of my affection. She didn't treat me like a person, so why should I remember old ties? And the benefits I gave her before? If I did that, I would be unfair to my Leo family, who have treated me with sincerity and irresponsible toward my own past. Sarah wouldn't give up, attempting one last effort, but she couldn't even touch my foot. She reached out her hand, but I shoved her away with a hard kick. That kick shattered every tie we ever had. Seeing Sarah sprawled on the floor like a pile of mud was enough. The classmates standing around finally understood. Sarah, who they thought was a cash cow, was nothing. She was worthless, while I, the one they always looked down on, was the real treasure. Realizing this, they all swarmed me. With a flattering smile, one said, "Leo, I was your desk mate." I shot him a cold look, sharp as a knife, and snorted with disdain. Did they really think I'd forget the humiliations they inflicted on me before? Or how they kicked me while I was down? Those classmates who had just been insulting me a moment ago looked at each other, trembling under my dominant gaze. They fell to their knees and slapped their own faces hard, saying, "Young Master Leo, we're sorry. We were blind not to recognize your greatness. Please be magnanimous and forgive us. Don't make an example of us." Only then did the resentment in my heart ease a little. I spoke slowly. "Originally, since we were classmates, I thought about lending you a hand, just like in our school days. But then I discovered you don't deserve it at all. So now, everyone get out." Hearing this, those classmates were filled with bitter regret. They wished they could travel back in time and kill their past selves for disrespecting me. As soon as I gave the word, the group didn't dare to get angry. Instead, they acted as if they'd received a royal pardon and scrambled to escape. At that moment, Marcus added coldly, "My brother is kind-hearted, but I, personally, always repay every single offense. Everyone present, one after another, is finished. I never want to see them again. Otherwise, their fate will be worse than Sarah's." They trembled violently, not daring to breathe, and nodded hastily. Then, with hurried steps, they fled as if escaping for their lives. I turned toward Marcus. I knew in my heart he did this, both to vent and to protect my reputation. He's always like this, giving everything for me without reservation. After this incident, in just 3 days, the family's former partners acted as if they had all agreed. One after another, they unilaterally proposed to cancel their cooperation. In reality, all of this was part of my plan. I had already ordered Marcus to suspend all projects with the family, and in this way, the family was left as a completely empty shell. It didn't take long before they declared bankruptcy. Sarah lost everything. She naively believed that clinging to the great family tree would bring her prosperity, but she didn't expect to be the one being played. Trapped like a turtle in a jar, those partners who had invested in the family, upon hearing about the bankruptcy, went to corner Sarah. They dealt her a crushing blow. Sarah was left powerless, but it didn't stop with her. When the fallout dragged her mother into the mess, it was all part of a web of dissatisfaction. The president was lying, and according to the records, he was speaking with the layout of the city. With huge steps, everyone seemed like toy pieces, as if this game of life were something essential. That game was a series of stupid moves appearing in startup pitches, but according to his party, he was ready to raise his value. During a press conference, they were waking up over and over because they were losing their advantages, and in those lines of power, the struggle continued. And in my heart, I only felt great relief. In my opinion, Sarah got what she deserved. It's the punishment she had to receive. I couldn't help but imagine that if I weren't the young master of the family now, my fate would be no better than Sarah's. Only then did I find today's peace. Marcus seemed to be thinking the same thing. He suddenly approached me and said mysteriously, "It's not over yet." As he spoke, he tossed a document in front of Sarah. She picked it up, her hands shaking as she looked at it. Upon seeing the contents, her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her face turned pale as ash. She muttered, "How is this possible?" The next instant, Sarah ran out like a madwoman, heading straight for Jason. She screamed at him, "Jason, I trusted you so much that I let you handle the company finances. Where did you embezzle the money? Give it back to me now." At that moment, Jason was holding his son. Seeing Sarah in that state, he instinctively took a few steps back. "Sarah, don't go crazy. I'm not like your ex who can endure a hard life with you. Besides, ever since he left, you have no idea how the company is doing. Have you closed a single project in these months? I already knew the company would end up like this. Originally, I hoped that with the projects he had managed before, the company could barely survive. I didn't expect him to do this. So what was I waiting for? Of course, I was going to take everything I could. From the beginning to the end, I only gave you enough. You couldn't learn how to think. That ruined any good decisions. The operations were short-sighted, losing millions in the process. Think about what you did to him. Since you ruined him that way, why do you think others can't do the same to you? It's a pity my sincere heart produced this cursed situation, Sarah. Don't expect me to raise the child. You insisted on having him, so take responsibility yourself." The moment he finished speaking, Jason's gaze turned fierce, and he suddenly threw the child toward her. Sarah's pupils contracted violently. Seeing this, she instinctively threw herself forward to catch him, but she missed. At the same time, a dull thud echoed behind Jason. It turns out Jason only pretended to throw him forward. Instead, he lifted him over his head and hurled him backward with force, slamming the child against the ground. And from the position where he landed, the little one rolled down the many levels of the stairs. He instantly stopped moving. "Baby!" Sarah screamed heart-wrenchingly. She ran like a madwoman toward the child, but when she arrived, the boy was no longer breathing. His tiny body lay limp there, without a hint of life. "Jason, you're a beast. How could you hurt your own son?" I'm going to kill you. Like a lunatic, Sarah ripped the hairpin from her hair and, without caring about anything, lunged at Jason. She stabbed him hard, several times in a row. Jason became completely enraged. In turn, he plunged his own weapon deep into Sarah's body. In an instant, both began to struggle violently. Blood gushed out in spurts, staining the floor around them red. But how could I allow Sarah to die so easily? I wanted Sarah, in the days to come, to be unable to live or die. I had Sarah taken to the hospital to be resuscitated. After more than 10 hours of resuscitation, Sarah survived, but Jason and the child died. For intentional homicide, Sarah was sentenced to death with a 2-year reprieve. During that time, she didn't have it easy either. She had unhealed wounds and, furthermore, suffered a broken heart. As for her colleagues, those who had invested, since they didn't get their money back, went to harass her parents. They beat, smashed, robbed, and burned everything, causing a massive uproar. At that moment, the police did not stop them easily. I never imagined I would see Sarah's parents again. That day, just as I was leaving the entrance of the Gray family mansion, I saw an elderly, gray-haired couple. Seeing me come out, they approached immediately. "Kevin, it's us, your aunt and uncle." Their voices dripped with flattery. To be honest, if it weren't for those voices I barely recognized, I wouldn't have known them. Seeing them in rags, looking like beggars, I really didn't recognize them at first. But before the couple could get close, my bodyguards held them back. "Kevin, those colleagues of yours went too far. Sarah has no money to pay them back. They were like thieves. They broke into our house, smashing things and hurting us." While they spoke, the couple began to wipe away tears, crying pitifully. I watched them coldly, while they performed, waiting for them to run out of breath from crying. Then, with total indifference, I spoke. "What does that have to do with me?" Hearing this, the couple froze. Their sobs choked in their throats. After a long silence, Sarah's mother had the nerve to say, "But you too, at the wedding, I was abandoned by Sarah. And you didn't just fail to do right by me, you mocked me with sarcasm. You humiliated me to the extreme. In my heart, Sarah is the person I hate most, along with these two, standing before me. Ever since I was a child, I lived under the roofs of others, deeply longing for family affection. When I fell for Sarah, I extended that love to her family, treating her parents as if they were my own. When Sarah didn't have time for them, I used to go keep them company, buying all kinds of health supplements one after another. But all my enthusiasm only earned me being called a toad trying to eat swan meat. They shamelessly trampled on my sincerity, tossing it aside like a dirty rag. After that, I saw everything clearly. They, just like Sarah, have no feelings. I thought, with that attitude, do they still have the nerve to ask for my forgiveness? It's ridiculous. I looked away in disgust and ordered the bodyguards at my side, "Throw them out. If they dare to approach the mansion again, shoot them immediately." Then, ignoring their screams, I got into the car and left. I spent the whole day at the Gray Group, busy without rest, helping the CEO with business matters on one hand, while on the other, Sarah finally left the hospital. Not because her wound had healed, but because she could no longer stay there. That day, Sarah, still in her hospital gown, threw herself in front of my car. She suddenly knelt on the ground. "Kevin, I know I was wrong. Everything I did before was because that bastard Alex tricked me. Please, forgive me." She looked up, her eyes full of pleading. I got out of the car and looked down at her. My eyes were as cold as if I were looking at a corpse. "Sarah, when you say that now, do you even believe it yourself? Could Alex really force you to get involved with him, have a child, and even get married?" I paused and then continued. "Even though Alex is a scoundrel, he said one thing true. You're a snake. You don't value those who treat you with sincerity. When you lose it, you shamelessly try to get it back. Someone who tramples on sincerity like you deserves to be betrayed." The sunken face of Sarah turned completely pale. She knew in her heart that if she let me go this time, the next time she tried to stop me would be harder than climbing to heaven, just like with her parents. So she reached out and tightly grabbed my pant leg, trying to inspire pity. "Kevin, you don't know. My parents are so miserable now. They have to work several jobs a day." "Enough," I interrupted her again. "They're paying for your mistakes. You should be the one helping them. Besides, why do you think I'd care about them if you don't know what they said to me the day you fled the wedding? Go home and ask them." In fact, even if she didn't know exactly what her parents said that day, she could imagine the gist of it. After all, in their daily lives, they already criticized me in front of her. On the day of the wedding escape, they were surely even more ruthless. But Sarah wouldn't give up. Her words were submissive. "Kevin, I beg you to forgive me. I'm willing to be your dog. For the sake of the 6 years we were together, give me a chance, okay?" As she spoke, her eyes turned red. Her attitude was humiliating to the extreme. Seeing it, I suddenly felt a hint of amusement. I asked, "And how far would you be willing to go for me?" Hearing this, Sarah saw a glimmer of light in her eyes, thinking there was a turning point. Immediately, right in front of me, she started barking like a dog. She really saw herself as a dog. Seeing Sarah so humble, I seemed to see the humble and stupid version of myself from the last 6 years. My 6 years of devotion. Sarah threw them away, just like that. I knew in my heart that if not for my identity as the young master of the Gray family, without the backing of Marcus and my grandfather, and if Sarah couldn't get the shares I held in my hands, she probably really would have killed me. After all, she was capable of hurting even the man she loved most, much less me, whom she had abandoned and considered a thorn in her side. My expression remained indifferent. I said word for word, "But Sarah, it seems you don't even have the qualifications to be my dog. Kevin. Sarah grit her teeth, finally pushed over the edge. Her eyes showed murderous intent, and she stopped pretending. Since you won't forgive me, then die. Why? Do you get to be the young master of the Gray family, while I have to live in misery my whole life? Come to hell with me. As soon as she finished speaking, she pulled a sharp knife from her sleeve. She lunged at me. Kevin. I already expected Sarah to attack. Just as I was about to dodge, an urgent cry suddenly rang out. Immediately after, a figure quickly stepped in front of me. Sarah missed her mark, but she sliced the person's calf. Seeing the drops of blood on the blade, my heart sank. In that moment, time seemed to stop. I knelt down immediately. I carefully examined Elena's wound. Although the skin-colored tights covered her leg, Elena could still feel the temperature of my fingers on her foot and her calf. That heat spread rapidly. For a moment, Elena felt her whole body grow warm. With some discomfort, she pulled her leg back and said, Kevin, I'm fine. I'm sure it's just a scratch. Don't do something so dangerous again. When she finished, I gestured to the nearby bodyguards to restrain Sarah first. Then, I held Elena firmly in my arms and strode toward the mansion. I'm going to call a doctor to treat the wound so it doesn't get infected. Elena curled up in my arms, feeling that burning temperature, her face growing more and more flushed. She also noticed that a moment ago, I hadn't called her sister, but had used her name directly. Behind them, Sarah stared fixedly at the figures walking away. That man who once considered her his life was now leaving with another woman in his arms. And in that moment, she seemed to understand how I felt when I was with Marcus. She finally understood my pain and why I had been so ruthless with him, never forgiving him. In the hospital room, the doctor repeatedly assured us that Elena's calf was only a superficial injury. It would heal in a few days without leaving a scar. Only then could I breathe a sigh of relief. Elena remembered the danger from a moment ago and still shuddered. She immediately wanted to send Sarah to the police station, but I stopped her. Better to send her to a psychiatric ward. Sometimes, living is more painful than dying. Elena followed my advice and committed Sarah to a psychiatric hospital. At first, Sarah kept screaming that she wasn't crazy. Step by step, growing constantly, those days fighting for my dreams made me immensely happy. But I never imagined that Elena would want to give me all the company's shares, and even voluntarily become my secretary. Kevin, from now on I will help you well, she said. The assistant discreetly left the office. Inside, only the two of us remained. Elena stared at me with a tender look, mixed with a bit of sorrow. After I left the Gray family, Elena had maintained it for more than 20 years, almost 30 years, besides taking care of my grandfather. And now she wanted to help me. Only then did I fully understand that Elena, from the beginning, intended to return the entire company to me. Although Elena had never expressed her affection directly, every one of her actions was full of love. But I, after suffering a wound from love, had lost my faith in it. I don't deny that I feel affection for Elena, and I know I have special feelings for her, but that isn't enough to give me the courage to start a new relationship. So, I turned Elena down. I didn't want to take over the company yet, and planned to go abroad to study. I wanted to travel and see the world. Seeing my decision was firm, Elena didn't insist. However, I never imagined that when I boarded the plane, I would see Elena sitting in the seat right next to mine. She was holding a business newspaper with her slender, pale fingers. When she saw me, the corners of her lips curled up into a tender smile. Grandpa, book this seat for me so I could go with you. I understood then. After all this time with Grandpa, I could tell he wanted to bring us together. That was also why he always asked me to call Elena by her name, instead of calling her sister. I smiled with resignation. The plane was about to take off. I couldn't get off now. I looked at Elena again and couldn't help but let out a laugh. Perhaps this trip would bring some unexpected surprises.